Hey, welcome to Teal Tinted Glasses, episode 41. Starting a little late tonight because I figured that I didn't feel like trying to fight for your undivided attention against playoff ending series games or just playoff games in general. So here we are, better late than never. With me right now is Mr. Hockey Jerk. Mr. Hockey Jerk, how are you doing today?
I'm really happy to be back here on Penguins postgame party. Oh wait, that's a different one. Sorry,
Oh,
that's
it's a different podcast. Damn.
something I got in the works. No, it's good to be back. I haven't been on the show in a while. I haven't even really chatted with you in a while, so it's good to be back.
I know it's been so like playoffs. Like normally we're all crazy sitting around, chatting all the time, and I've been so busy with freaking work that I just talk to nobody. I'm just like, hey, do we got to do a show X, Y, or Z days? And then whatever I get the most yeses for, I'm like, cool, here we are.
Yeah, it's a struggle, but fear not, the quality content will be back at its regular pace soon enough.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so where to start? I mean, I guess playoff games happened, right? It's playoffs things going on right now.
Only a handful of them.
Only a handful. Actually, let's start with some around the league stuff first before we get into the playoff series, because I'm gonna do my best to try and summon Drew Weber. Bill Peters opts out of his contract with the Carolina Hurricanes to coach the Calgary Flames. This this makes sense for me for Peters, because he had the opt out in his contract, and it makes sense to use it because you have what's his name now? The guy that owns the Hurricanes now. It's not Peter Kornos anymore.
I don't recall his name, but he's the guy who's super hard on for the Whalers nostalgia.
Yeah, and he also, he moved Ron Francis out of his position, promoted him out of his position. Basically
forgot about that.
Doesn't want to pay his next GM a whole lot of money. Obviously, a new GM comes in, then you're going to have problems with, if you're a coach. I mean, that's usually the kiss of death, right? The new coach generally wants to bring in his own guy. So if I'm Bill Peters, I'm opting the hell out of Carolina too, with that kind of cloud over my head. But I think Calgary is an interesting move because I feel like it's almost lateral.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I mean, both teams, they have really solid defense and they have the makings of a really solid forward group as well. But with both teams, it's the goaltending. I mean, Mike Smith was good, but he obviously slipped. And then, Scott Darling was not what he was expected to be. And Cam Warren is not what he once was. And
for one season.
Yeah. Right. And, you can, and we've seen it too. We've seen it with the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, you can have studded forwards and studded defense, but if your goaltender is somewhere between, a scarecrow and a shooter tutor, you're not going to have a whole lot of luck.
Works for Philly.
Well, with Philadelphia, it's a matter of quality over quantity. I mean, as we know, the Flyers average at least 4 goalies a year, so you're bound to get a save somehow.
Yeah, that's fair. Yes, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's a lateral move. I don't know if I'm a Calgary fan. I'm super excited, being that look at Calgary has some pieces. Carolina has some pieces for being, Carolina, not exactly, a hockey hotbed of. But I mean, I feel like if you pay attention, the pieces in Carolina are actually pretty damn intriguing at this point. Underrated defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
They have forwards.
Yeah, their offensive punch is actually pretty impressive. I mean, the obvious one there is Sebastian Aho, and you have Victor Rask, you have Elias Lindholm, you have Teuvo Teravainen, and don't forget about Jeff Skinner and Justin Williams. I mean, all of these guys had a hand in the offense, and like I said, I think if Carolina was able to make more saves, I think it would have helped them out, later on in the season. I don't know whether or not they would have made the playoffs, but it definitely would have been a situation where they would have been in the hunt for longer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm angry at Carolina right now, so I don't know if next season I'm going to be as high on Carolina, which is why they're going to be awesome. But I
Of
feel like
course.
there's two teams that I'm just over, and I'm not saying good things about next year. Carolina and Arizona. I have nothing good to say about either team next year, and I want to be held to that. If I even start straying a little bit, someone smack me, because I
I
can't do
will
it.
I will be sure to keep you on that path. I too am of the same mindset, except there are certain teams that I'm over watching make the playoffs. Like, I'm getting really sick of watching the Washington Capitals every year. Like,
But at
I'm
least like
really
Washington, like what I liked about this, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but I mean, for all the crap that gets thrown Ovechkin's way, he had a huge game tonight.
and that's the thing is, you go back to those two series against the Penguins and the series against the Rangers a couple years ago. Like,
Yeah.
Ovechkin always has good games when it matters, and everybody else lets him down. There's a goal here that probably shouldn't be let in. I mean,
Mhm.
last year's kind of an exception because the Capitals literally had nothing against the Penguins, but that the game against the Rangers, Game 7, that was an overtime loss for them, and I could be wrong. I think Ovechkin had at least a goal in that game, perhaps two, and it's by no means are their failures Ovechkin's fault. Like,
Yeah.
Ovechkin is, as much talent as they have there, Ovechkin is the only one who's consistently, I guess, been a part of the solution there, and as halfway wanting to see him get a cup, but halfway wanting to watch the world burn as well. I would like to.
I know how
I
that
would like.
goes.
I would like to see the Capitals trade him.
Yeah. Chuck Fletcher is not going to be renewed in Minnesota as the Wild. He was on the final year of his contract, and he will not be renewed after 9 seasons, general manager of the Wild. I was thinking about this a lot, and honestly, I don't think Chuck Fletcher did a terrible job in Minnesota.
I don't think so either. I kind of flopped back and forth on this. I was kind of thinking that, okay, maybe he's got another year in him just because
Mhm.
they've been a really good regular season team. But, playoff failures eventually, come around and catch up to you. And, I believe this year is I want to say it's the third straight year that they've been bounced in the first round. And,
Right.
it's not a good trend for them to be on when you consider how good they are. I mean, especially like the 2 years that Eric Stahl has had there, and Devin Dubnyk has been playing lights out hockey, and you've had guys like Mikhail Granlund and like Matt Dumba,
Right.
who've really stepped into their own. And it, as somebody who knows a good chunk of people from Minnesota, and so I guess you could say I have a very minuscule vested interest in that team. It kind of sucks to see how how much they've slacked in the playoffs, considering their really good regular seasons. And I think getting rid of Chuck Fletcher will be good because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the GM who gets the players, and when 2/3 of your roster is not doing what it needs to do, ultimately it falls on the GM, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I look at I don't like Parise being signed forever, but I still think Ryan Suter's worth every penny of his contract. Like, he was hurt, which sucked. Just Zach Parise at this point is made of glass.
Well, and that's the funny thing too, is because I agree with you. I take Ryan Suter for as long as he's under contract, but it's weird because the last 2 years that Parise contract has looked really dicey for them, and then come playoff time, he's a totally different player.
Yeah, it's strange. Like, I don't know. I mean, I look at the things, and the only really big knocks that I have against Chuck Fletcher is obviously we pretty much stole Brent Burns.
Right.
And I still think that, getting extorted by Vegas, not his finest moment either. But other than
Yeah,
that, like,
seriously.
but aside from that, I mean, I look at that team, and I mean, at least defensively, it's a good team.
Mhm.
There's a lot to like on that blue line. Maybe the forward core has never really had the right mix. But I still think, as much as Minnesota's, as much as hockey in Minnesota are kind of synonymous, it just seems like, other than Suter and Parise, I've never really seen a big free agent go there.
Well, no, and you're absolutely right. I believe Suter and Parise were the first big free agents to go there. I mean, it was not a hot ticket for the longest time, and lately they've sort of bucked that trend. With, like I said, how good they've been in the regular season. But I think whoever their new GM is, and everybody cross your fingers that it's me. Wouldn't that be nice? But like I think whoever this new GM is, he's got to do what Jim Benning did on his first day in Vancouver. You have to come in and you've got to make a big move right away to get the fans excited about the product for the coming season and just kind of get things refreshed a little bit. I mean, I don't know how many Minnesota Wild fans are still really into Charlie Coyle at this point. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if I'm the Minnesota Wild GM, that's probably number one on my list. I would trade Charlie Coyle. Honestly, I would trade him for a draft pick, or
a young. Get a lot more than Charlie for that. For Charlie Coyle.
I'm certain.
I failed in summoning Drew Weber, but I did summon Kevin Lacey. How you doing, Kevin?
It's taco night.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that, like I said, you can't for as long as it took him to get there, you can't part with Mikhail Granlund at this point. He's too valuable, and I think Nino Niederreiter, I think he needs to have a good season to keep himself on the Minnesota Wild. But honestly, Charlie Coyle, for what he's brought at the NHL level, which has really been only one good season. I mean, I think you have to see what you can get for him. And, like you said, they're pretty set on defense. Yeah. I'm thinking you have to either recoup a draft pick from what they lost trading for Martin Hanzal, or maybe a, prospect that you can play on your bottom pair, at least to start, or something. But I think not a rebuild, but like a reset or a refresh, I think is needed in Minnesota.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, it's kind of in the chat too, saying like, and I don't really look at trade deadline deals, like I don't, because the prices are always stupid. It's very rare a GM makes a good deal at the deadline. So
like the Evander Kane deal.
Right. I mean, those, but that's a diamond in the rough. Like, they don't
exactly
come like that very often. So I try not to overly punish people, like talk down to people about trade deadline deals, because they're all dumb. and they work out for one team, obviously, and for 16 or maybe 18 other teams. Like, if you're looking at teams trying to get in or whatnot, then they don't work out ultimately.
See, yeah. And I completely disagree with what Hockey Jerk said about Charlie Coyle, and that all I heard all season was how Charlie Coyle has been the best player for the Wild this season, filling in for Parise when he's hurt, playing on every line on the team. He had his second highest statistical season in the league. It was a drop down from last year, which was his best season statistically. But I was hearing trade rumors about him, but we're talking like a first, a second, and a player for Coyle. That was the kind of the banter that was going about, and that's not a light load. I'm not saying that's what Minnesota would get for him. That seems a bit high for a guy who's probably a mid-6 forward, but I mean, that's the kind of respect that this guy has been getting around the league. So I don't know, buddy. I can't buy into that.
See, and I think you make a good point. I mean, like you said, it is his second best scoring year, but I mean, only 37 points, and he's only broke 50, once, considering how many years he's been in the league. And he has a very team-friendly deal. There's no doubt about that. But I really want to see, consistency from him. Like we saw, Granlund and Stahl and Zucker were pretty much on fire for a majority of the year, versus guys like Coyle and even guys like Nino Niederreiter, who would have a cluster of games where maybe they score in every game, and then it's a stretch of just a whole lot of nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. I can buy into that. Yeah.
With Charlie Coyle, though, I mean, isn't this another case where, he was drafted by a certain GM ridiculously too high, and he's just never going to live up to that draft positioning.
I think it's that. I also think it's a matter of, the last 2 or 3 years, he's pretty much been bouncing between wing and center.
Yeah. Like I just like, I think for, Coyle's another victim of Doug Wilson reaching in the first round, way into the second round, where I think Coyle should have been taken. And then having those kind of first round expectations on him, even though it was a pretty late pick in the draft, if I remember correctly, the year he was drafted.
All I'll say is I'm glad we have Brent Burns instead.
Yeah, no, and and then that's the other thing. I mean, obviously, I take Brent Burns every day and twice on Sunday. Like, I don't have any.
Wait, what are you talking about? I want that
Coyle.
Zach Phillips back. That Zach Phillips draft pick.
Yeah,
I can't believe we traded Zach Phillips to get Brent Burns. So terrible.
Ridiculous. Also, in other news, Trent Yanni is out as an assistant coach in Anaheim. This one kind of surprised me because if there's one thing you always ask, there's one thing I think we've always said about Anaheim is in a positive manner, which isn't much because of the Ducks, and we hate the Ducks, but that decor. And Trent Yanni was a big factor in developing that decor. And so I'm kind of surprised that he's the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, and the thing that surprises me too is that he was the only one of the Ducks assistant coaches to get the boot. None, as far as I know, none of their other assistant coaches will be losing their job. So it kind of makes you wonder if perhaps there was some kind of, disagreement between parties and they thought it was best to just separate.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's like, because he was there before Carlisle, obviously. So it'll be interesting to see who they replace him with, to see what they do. Because I don't know if this is a message where they're sending a message to Carlisle, being like, "Ha ha ha, we just killed one of your friends. You better be better next week."
The only thing with Yanni is I think last year there was some talk about him stepping down as assistant coach because he wants to be an NHL head coach. I don't know if now's the time to try him out as an NHL coach, if you're a team that's willing to give him that opportunity. But the Ducks needed to do something. They're not firing Carlisle because Bob Murray's still there. So I guess Yanni is on the chopping block, but he could just as easily be using this as another opportunity to become a head coach somewhere. So
yeah, I mean, there's jobs. I mean, look at Carolina's looking for a new head coach, GM, pretty much stick boy soon. I'm sure they're going to fire them next.
See, the thing that makes me curious about what Anaheim is going to do is, it's well documented how much I like the Ducks roster as it's currently constructed. I mean, when your third line is Nick Ritchie, Adam Henrique, and Andre Kasha, it's very hard to complain. But
I agree.
But I'm amazed at how poor things went for them in the playoffs when you consider the extremely successful regular season was for them. I'm curious to see where they take it, and honestly, with Carlisle sticking around and Bob Murray sticking around as well, I don't know how many changes there will actually be. I think for the Ducks, I think it's going to be a situation where it's like, well, we were beat up all year, we're good. Let's just stay the course and see what happens.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Let's go ahead, Kevin.
Ian, I think you and I are going to be on the same page. Hockey Jerk, I think you're right. I think that's exactly what they're going to do. But I remember watching NBC or something like that just a few nights ago, and they were saying, like, how many years are they going to just stay it was Mark Savard. Mark Savard was like, how many years are they going to stick with the same guys over and over and over to like do something else? I don't know. I think GMs are too quick to make trades and blow things up too quickly. But I don't know. Ian, what's your take? What should Anaheim do? Because I think Hockey Jerk's right. I don't think they're going to do a whole lot. I don't know if they should.
I think if I'm the Ducks, if I'm the owners, I want to clean from the top down. I want a top down purging if I'm the Ducks at this point, because look at Bob Murray's made some interesting. Like, look, he's done some good things, but he's also made some interesting moves. I don't think Bruce Boudreau should have ever been fired in Anaheim, and certainly not to bring back Randy Carlyle. Like, at some point, you have to look at the team and what they've done. GMs can overstay their welcome, I think, and I think that Bob Murray's just been there too long. And now, as much as he's done good things, and there's definitely good draft picks and whatnot there, like the Ducks have some nice prospects in the system, but at the same time, they're in denial of where they are, and just some of the moves that they've made, they need someone to slam the brakes. Boschman, Bieksa, even Kessler, if Kessler's healthy, I mean, you can kind of excuse that, but you've traded away Shea Theodore, and now you have, you let Shea Theodore go. You traded Sami Vatanen so you could play Bieksa and Boschman, and like, what the hell's going on there?
Yeah, there's definitely been some very suspicious moves there, and even the whole Simone Dupre situation. I mean, Anaheim buys him out because of injury concerns, but then he turns around and signs in the KHL. I mean, right there, that was extremely suspicious, if you ask me. And I think they do need to stay the course because, like I said, I think that roster is a lot better than what we saw in the series against San Jose. But I agree with you as well. I mean, how many more times does this roster get a chance at it? I mean, I think like Getzlaf, I don't put any of this on Getzlaf. I mean,
other than the stupidity, I mean, you want your leaders to be good.
The stupid penalties, absolutely. But I mean, Corey Perry's fall from grace has been heavily documented the last 3 years. And like you said, that, you're not going to put Boschman and Bieksa together, obviously. So now you have two of your D pairs that are significantly lacking in, mobility.
Yeah. But here's my thing, though, with these teams. I think the LA Kings are in a similar situation. Obviously, they've already done a cleaning of they've done a top-down cleaning, but these teams are big, heavy teams, and I'm not surprised that they both got swept in the first round. The league has moved, like, there's not really any of these big, punishing, super heavy teams left that are having any success.
Right.
And I mean, if Anaheim's going to stay the course, that's all they have.
Yeah, you kind of have to hope. I mean, I know they have Sam Steele coming in, but you have to hope that their prospects who are coming in are just, like you said, better foot speed. I mean, as much as I like Nick Ritchie, I mean, he's more known for his physicality. And
correct.
It's
Max
you
Jones,
hope,
same thing.
Yeah, same thing with Max Jones, and you hope that these guys, especially with how young they are, realize where the game is going and then make adjustments to, assist with their transition.
Right, and that's how I feel. Like, I feel like they just need to have that transition where they, I just think they need to move, and I don't know if, again, like, you have a lot of these dinosaurs that are still in the league, still building teams the same way, and I don't know. Like, I know Bob Murray's been in the league a long time, maybe too long. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what? Whatever. Let the Ducks stay the way they are. Let them stay the course, and they will continue to suck.
Yes, all we hope for here on Teal Tinted Glasses is that all the Pacific Division teams are bad.
That's right. Every one of them. Even Arizona, because I'm over you, Arizona. You've screwed me for the last time.
See, I don't know. I really think they changed this time.
They changed for real this time.
They mean it.
They mean it for real. Oh, there's a question in the chat coming. All right, go ahead. Looks like a Cabbage Patch Kid on roids.
You know what? That's a perfect description. Good job, Vince.
Oh my goodness. All right.
Bring in the heat.
Oh my goodness. Okay. As we wait for this question, let's move into the playoff series because I think we should probably talk about those. Now that we're
playoffs.
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 Oh my goodness.
We're trying to have a podcast. Playoffs.
Oh, playoffs. All right. So Tampa Bay Lightning defeat the New Jersey Devils 4-1. Any thoughts on the series? Anything that stood out to you? Any highlights for you? I honestly, this was the series I think I watched the least of. I just didn't find it all that compelling.
See,
as far as other options to watch.
I had a feel with how well the Devils played to end the season, but again, it's the Devils going up against Tampa Bay.
Right.
You know, I thought they would get one win, and you know what, they did. But at the same time, you know, with them and with Columbus tonight as well, it's really unfortunate seeing teams, and Colorado last night, it's really unfortunate seeing teams facing elimination and just show up with nothing. You know, no jump to their game, no jump to their game, no urgency, no anything. It's just going through the motions. Like, you know, well, nobody expected us to get this far, so you know, it's okay if we lose.
I thought Taylor Hall had a decent playoff from what I saw, but I mean, I think that you, because of the age of that Devils team, kind of lends itself to that, right? Because I think a lot of those kids, you know, I think by the end of it, Tampa manhandled them. And by the end, I just think a lot of those kids, like, they're, you know, all that bright-eyed, bushy-tailedness was crushed. They watched Bambi's mom get shot in the field, and they just couldn't get over it.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think Vince G is right too. Says Devils fans have nothing to be ashamed about. Future's right. Absolutely, they are right. I mean, you know, you look at Nico Hischier, you look at Will Butcher, Jesper Bratt. I mean, all three of those guys had you know, monster years when you compare them to their expectations. And then, like you said, Kevin, Taylor Hall. I mean, what more can be said about him? Like, he's a superstar. You know,
Ian said that, but I concur.
Sorry, we're all the same. It gets confusing.
We are all Kevin.
We're all Kevin Lacey. It's true. Kevin, any thoughts on the series?
Nope. Honestly, I hardly saw this series at all. I picked Tampa in 5, and they won in 5. So
did I.
Yep, me too.
All right. Boston Bruins are tied with the Leafs, actually. So I mean, that's obviously awful things happen in the world every day. Today, they just so happen to happen in Toronto. So I think obviously, you know, people be nice to each other, stop running people over and shooting people, and we could all get along somehow, some way. I don't want to get too into it. But I do want to say this, that we watched earlier in the year. I think, you know, Vegas, two things. They had a chip on their shoulder, and they kind of had the opportunity to galvanize a community, and they really ran with that. And I'm not saying that, you know, I'm not trying to say that shitty things happening in the world should make for good sports stories, but it's going to be interesting if the Leafs can kind of find that same magic that they did tonight and actually make a run with it. And I don't know if that's a jerk off storyline or not, but that's probably the narrative we're going to get fed. I don't know if I like it, but it is what it is. What do you guys think? You guys think this, you think Boston's going to take care of business in Game 7, or are the Leafs going to surprise us all?
Now, as we all know, I hate Boston, and I'm using this tactic to get drafted by them. But okay. Boston was so good in the first 3 games, and I'm not really sure what's happened. I mean, especially tonight, you know, they got some good chances in the third period, but there were just so many times where they just looked out of it, and it kind of makes you wonder, where did it all go? You know what I mean? And I think Toronto definitely did have something to play for tonight. I mean, obviously their season is on the line, but you know, they want to get, you know, have their fans be happy about something, and you know, get people in Toronto smiling, which I totally understand. I get that. I'm not against that idea. I don't know. It's like, as somebody who picked Boston in their bracket, and as somebody who wants you know, the Toronto Maple Leafs to lose, I really hope Boston can figure it out in Game 7, because they're too good to be out in the first round.
That I agree with. And it'll also completely destroy my bracket. So stop it, Toronto. Just stop it. Kevin, what's your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think Boston has totally lost their mojo. I don't know what it is. I missed the first couple of games for this series, but I saw game 3, and that game was amazing. That game was so much fun to watch. But since then, since game 4, they've really seemed to just lose their mojo for whatever reason. And Toronto's been a really hot and cold team for most of the year. But I really think Toronto's going to end up winning in game 7. However, there is, a few years ago, that whole thing when James Reimer was their goalie, and it looked like the Leafs were going to beat the Bruins in that game 7 as well, and look what happened. So I don't think either team should be quite so confident until the game's over.
That series also led to one of the best Randy Carlyle sound bites of all time. James Reimer, I thought he was okay.
Yeah, I mean, look at I hate the Bruins, but I think that I hate the Bruins, like with the fiery passion. Like if there's an East team that I absolutely loathe, it's the Bruins.
Yep.
And but that being said, I agree. I think they're too good to be out the first round. I think that Toronto's when they've come on, but they're been so inconsistent. And Freddie Anderson can't do everything, and he's had to in a lot of games.
I don't know, man. He looked like he could do everything tonight.
I know. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, I think Boston is going to finish it out, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens now with the Leafs. I mean, the Leafs looked really good tonight.
See, what needs to happen is Boston just needs to pull their goalie for the first 4 goals and guaranteed to win.
Fair enough. All right. Moving on. We will move to the Metro, where the Washington Capitals eliminated the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight, taking their series 4 games to 2. A whole lot of predictions being made. The Russian made the right ones. The American made the wrong one. I want to start with this because I think this is like the stupidest thing ever. How the double standards in the NHL. And I don't want to pick on people specifically, but I think Mark Spector, someone tweeted out like if someone who was not Russian had made the prediction that their team was going to come back, that they would be this lauded hero, blah blah blah. But because it's Ovechkin, nope, nothing. And then of course, like Mark Spector's like, oh well, Canadian would have never made any guarantees in the first round. I just I want to punch NHL people in the face sometimes.
Granted, I know it wasn't a prediction or a first round prediction, but I can recall a certain Canadian making a prediction in the playoffs. No?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And the greatest captain of all time.
Yep.
So they say.
Well, as we've all established, everybody's out to take Russia down, and
true.
the good Canadian boys would never play with the chip on their shoulder, obviously.
No, they would never play with chips on their shoulder. They would never, they don't hot dog in games.
No, and I checked with my good friend Don Cherry, and he said the reason why the Maple Leafs are going to beat Boston is because they stopped drafting guys from Sweden and Finland. Did you know that?
Yeah, that Nylander guy, totally. Canadian,
yeah, right.
Super trooper.
Oh, wearing their gold chains around their neck.
It's Columbus really fell apart here.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like if on the Columbus side, I mean, I like this ending because this is the way I called it. Washington can only go out to Pittsburgh in the playoffs. It's a rule somewhere written.
Terrible.
But Columbus, I honestly, after the way they played those first 2 games, I was surprised. I'm surprised that Washington stormed back to take 4 straight games from them. I thought it would be more of a series after that, but I don't know. Like, what do you do if you're Columbus? I mean, I guess, Columbus maybe is the case where you stay the course because you have so much there.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
And they're so young, too.
And they're so young, right? Like, I mean, they're only, you hope that they only just learn from this and they get better. I mean, you have Zach Werenski, Seth. I mean, look at this team is stupid.
Couple things in the chat stand out to me.
Okay.
Race fan rocks 4 says, "Wait, Ovi's a heel. He is a heel, but he's the heel you cheer.
He's the heel, right? He's the guy that they.
He's like Stone Cold Steve Austin, like
right.
You know, he's like me.
That too. Well, he's like all of us. We are all heels.
True.
We would all take a steel chair to each other at no problem.
That's true.
But also, Mike Nevis saying Blue Jackets sign Ilya Kovalchuk. I could see that because
I could too.
A certain former teammate and former buddy of his named Artemi Panarin is sitting pretty nicely over there.
Do they probably have some space still kicking around, don't they? Columbus?
Well, if I recall correctly, I believe Jack Johnson is on the way out in Columbus, so that would free up some dollars. And they don't have David Clarkson anymore, so.
That's true. Let's see where Columbus is sitting here. Columbus.
Like I've said since day one, cap space must be always.
Yes, cap space must be always. Columbus is somewhere in the middle here, I'm thinking.
Just a total just off tangent moment, but I really loved in the handshake line Sergei Bobrovsky with the little wink to Braden Holtby in the handshake line. Like I was just like, God, Bobrovsky's so cool. Like he's so cool. Like, I mean, besides being a fantastic goalie, I mean, I can only imagine how good of a locker room guy this guy is.
But that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing that's going to be said now because Bobrovsky, who's really had the absolute luxury of playing just like the best defensive teams, it seems, every time they make the playoffs and, and have their issues. But like, it's interesting because like Bobrovsky, again, I think he only had like a 900 save percentage this series. And I don't know. I think the narrative about him is going to be harder to shake, whereas I don't think it's fair because I think he's played a lot of really, really good offensive teams and, that have played a not so great Columbus team where Bobrovsky was the best player. And I don't think that's the case anymore. I think Columbus has gotten better as a team, but, it's going to be interesting. And then Washington, maybe next time start with your Vezina winning goalie.
I mean, it's a very bold strategy, obviously. I don't know. I mean, who wants to take advantage of things right from the get-go, right?
That's true. Yeah, it's a bold strategy. But you know what? Ovechkin said they would win and they won. And Tort said that they would not. They would come and play a game 7 and they did not. So, by my hockey cliches, Ovechkin, greatest player ever. Torts,
Torts good enough to be a World Cup of hockey coach.
That's right. Good enough to be a World Cup of hockey coach.
So does Ovechkin because Ovechkin is Russian, is him guaranteeing that they would win? Or does that mean that he's admitting that he conspired? Because as we know, the Russians are guilty of everything. Obviously.
I think there's definitely conspiracy. Mike Nev's in the chat asking, Torts fired. I don't think so. Maybe. I don't think so, though. I don't think really Columbus. I don't know if you do anything. I think
they need to add a couple defensemen. That's about it.
Yeah, they're good. They just need to. This sucks, and this is a tough pill to swallow. But I mean, you can't touch Yarmo. If you fire Yarmo, you're stupid, and you deserve all the bad things that are going to come after that. And if you fire Torts, I mean, what do you do? Bring in Alain Vigneault, I guess. I don't know.
The carousel of coaches continue.
Right. I mean, it's like I don't know, man. But you know what? I was happy that Ovechkin had a good game. We were talking about this before. It just, he always seems to show up like big, and for a guy who, he has no cups, Sidney Crosby's so much better. Like, Ovechkin generally isn't the problem.
Yeah, it's always been the supporting cast around him. I mean,
yeah,
I think we talked about it before. I believe it was the elimination game against the Rangers where he, the Capitals had 2 goals, and I'm pretty sure Ovechkin had both of them. It's a matter of like what more can they do?
Well, one fact I heard that it was astonishing was Ovechkin has no career overtime goals in the playoffs, which I thought was very odd.
Gutless.
But gutless. But I'm just going to pose this question to you guys. If Washington finally beats Pittsburgh, like it finally happens, how pissed will you be if Washington loses in the conference finals?
I wouldn't be.
Depends on where we're going. Depends on who's else. Depends on how far the Sharks go.
This is true. It also depends on how the other part of the Eastern Conference goes. Because if let's say we get a conference final of Boston, Washington, then there's going to be hell to pay for my neighbors because I'm going to be very upset. But I don't know. Especially in the Eastern Conference, for me, like there are so many instances, like, you know, not a fan of Boston, but I'm pulling for them to win. And, you know, I pulled for Pittsburgh to beat the Flyers, but if Columbus won, I would be pulling for Pittsburgh to lose against Columbus. I feel like I'm such a turncoat these playoffs, you know?
It's a difficult time. It's really, you know, you get teams up, you get teams down. Speaking of the Pittsburgh Flyers series, Pittsburgh defeated the Flyers. The series went longer than I thought it would. Honestly, I thought the Penguins were going to just make quick work. But you know what? But at the same time, it's like, you know, that rivalry, and I should have known better because these series are always a bloodbath.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're a bloodbath because your star player gets attacked by your own goony teammate in practice. It happens. You know, poor Radko Judas. I don't know.
Yeah,
he's done right.
For their sake, I hope so. I mean, you literally, he single-handedly tore their best player's MCL.
Like, yeah, I mean, not on purpose, but
well, of course, but I mean, you talk about you talk about being a heel, like that was like, you know,
that was Marty Jannetty going through the plate glass.
Yeah, it really was. It really was.
Oh, Jannetty, he tried to jump through that window. What a coward. Gutless.
Oh man. Yeah, oh wow. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this series kind of went the way I thought it would. Philly's goaltending issues, large and in charge. It's funny because like it felt like every one of those games was just a high-scoring mess.
That's how it was the last time they played.
I know.
The last two series they played.
I don't understand with the Philly goaltending being that bad how Pittsburgh loses 2 games.
That's the exact point that I was making. Like I think the first thing I said when, you know, free agency all kind of broke down, I was like, you know, Flyers fans, I'm sorry to tell you, but Brian Elliott is not the answer.
I feel like, are they ever going to have an answer? Like, I feel like they've gone through so many guys. Like, Ron Hextall was like their last good goalie. He's their GM now.
Maybe he should put on the pads.
Yeah. I wonder, I don't know what they make the goalie sticks out of. They're still like the composite, like everything else, man. I wonder how like they would shatter with him. Reaching them over their crossbar. Like
what sucks for Philly is like, I mean, Stolarz should already have been the guy by now, but the injuries hampered that. So you're looking at Carter Hart and either Alex Lyon or Matej Tomek as your backup, and that's way down the line. So like by the time those guys are ready, how old is Claude Giroux gonna be? Like the Flyers are wasting their best years of their best players waiting for a goalie. Like,
yeah.
Now they have an incredibly young, amazing defense core. So
they also have an amazingly young and also who did really well under the radar season. Nolan Patrick had a really good season under the radar.
He trended upward throughout the year. That's true.
Yeah, he definitely started out slow, but yeah, like you said, he turned it around.
He turned it around. He was pretty. I thought he was pretty. Like the games that I watched, I thought he was pretty impressive. Which I thought he would be. Like him and Hischier were so close. Like I thought Hischier was the way that the Devils should have gone, but Nolan Patrick's still a hell of a hockey player.
Trying to think of who it was, but Nolan Patrick I feel like is going to be like a guy who maybe like a Ryan Johansson, where like the first 3 or 4 years it was like, oh yeah, he was a high pick, but whatever, you know. And then like year 4, year 5, all of a sudden, bam, where did that come from? Like, you know, there it is. So I'm curious to see how his career progression goes. We should talk about Sean Couturier, though.
Yeah, he's a boss.
Yeah, he is.
Like, guy's a boss. I love Sean Couturier. I've always loved Sean Couturier, and he just continues to be. You know, he's another guy who's, you know, he's not old, he's not young, but he's not old either. So he'll be still, you know, he'll be hitting his prime by the time Hart's ready.
Yeah. I go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, Sean Couturier was, you know, for the longest time he was good in bunches, you know, and then he would kind of slow down. And I think this year was a huge step for him. And I think putting Drew on his wing was absolutely paramount. I mean, you know, for as many years as Drew has played center, like, he's never struck me as a passer, you know, despite the fact that he's got a boatload of assists this year. But I think getting Drew and Couturier on the same line, I think, really helped him out. And it's nice to see, because, you know, that clutch playoff guy that we saw, you know, 6 years ago, we saw that pretty much all regular season.
Yeah. Rob in the chat just about the gold situation. He thinks that a lot of teams are going to pursue You see, Saros is a RFA. You're not going to give up, man. You if you're going to give up, you're going to have to give an offer sheet to pry him out of Nashville. Better damn hope that he's the answer, because that you're gonna have to give up a lot to get him out of Nashville. You're gonna be, if you do the offer sheet, you're the compensation you're gonna have to give up is gonna be pretty hefty to get him out of Nashville, in my opinion. And I don't think I do that. Okay, so let's get moving on to the West here. Western Conference, Nashville. Speaking of Nashville, defeats the Colorado Avalanche in 6 games. The Hamburglar stole a game. That was fun.
That was fun. Colorado. This is the series that surprised me the most. I really thought. I mean, I gave Colorado a chance to win a game. I picked Nashville in 5.
I think,
but wow, Colorado really impressed me in that series. Like, just overall, okay, game 6, yeah, they got routed pretty badly, but overall in the series, they took it to Nashville. And I think Nashville was kind of reeling there the first 3 games. They didn't know what to do. Obviously, Rena wasn't that good, but I mean, give some credit to Colorado too.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, and like you said, you know, game 5, you have the Hamburglar. He steals a game, and no pun intended, but, you know, he also sets the Avalanche record for most saves in a regulation playoff game. And, you know, I believe it was I want to say it was game 2 as well, where, you know, Colorado lost, but they were down by a good chunk of goals, and they almost brought it all the way back. And, you know, like you said, Kevin, like, they definitely gave Nashville some fits, and they were the most surprising for me. I also had them going down in 5 games, and the fact that they got it to 6, that impressed me the most. But at the same time, you had a feeling it was coming. I mean, realistically, they're maybe like a 1.5 line team, you know? And it's just not a recipe.
Consider where they were last season to do what they did against the President's, you know, the President's Trophy team. Like, this Colorado team's for real, man. And if you ever want a case of staying the course, now obviously Duchesne did get moved, but I think that was coming. That was a long time coming. Yeah. But if you ever want an example of why sometimes you just need to stay the course, Colorado's it. You know, people last year they wanted Bednar fired, they wanted everything torn to the ground, and
they wanted Landeskog's head on a stick.
They did. And, you know, look, they didn't trade Landeskog, they did trade Duchesne. And I mean, after they traded Duchesne, I think that's really when things turned around for them. So, you know, sometimes you just got to stay the course. Sometimes it doesn't look good, but
another huge thing for Colorado was they were, I think, about a week or so away from losing Nikita Zadorov to the KHL.
Yep.
Like, Zadorov, if I recall, he missed the beginning of training camp because he was just not happy and wanted out. And I mean, he went from potential KHL player this year to having an absolute breakout season. He led the league in hits, and he was a force for them all year in the playoffs. I felt like the only defenseman I noticed for Colorado the entire playoffs. Now, mind you, this may be because Nashville had the puck a fair amount, but I felt like Zadorov was in there all the time, and that's a great sign for him as a player and for Colorado going forward.
Not only that, but in the regular season when they were trying to sew up a playoff spot, like he scored some pretty clutch goals as well. He I agree with you 100%. Like how quickly things can change. He
2 years ago, he was playing for San Antonio and looking like crap against the Barracuda team that wasn't very good either.
Right. Yeah, exactly. He came from, Buffalo and never really got it figured out. But this year, I agree with you. He was probably their most standout defenseman in the playoffs. Like I noticed him, honestly, even more than Tyson Barrie.
Yeah. I completely concur. I mean, look I think I think the future is bright in Colorado. I think, for all of for great, it's a great story because I think for everyone talking about how, Joe Sakic has no idea what he's doing and, Jared Bednar was a terrible hire and just everything. I mean, how do you not like that story? I mean, obviously Colorado fans wished it ended a little bit better, but they came into they fought their way into the playoffs and had to face probably one of the best teams in the league, period. Forget the West, like in the league. And they held their own and made, they made it a series, which it on paper had no business being. So moving on, the Jets beat the Wild. It was a 5-game series. Not really surprised. The Jets really, they're just good. They were just overmatched. The Wild were just outmatched, period. And it showed.
I too had Winnipeg winning. I thought they would take it to 6 just because of how well Minnesota played this year. I didn't really think Minnesota was just gonna, fold over, especially in those first 2 games. But like you said, Winnipeg was just flying the whole way.
Mm-hmm. Did you watch any of this? Sorry, do you watch any of the series, Kevin?
I watched a little bit. I wanted to see more of it, but I can't get into Minnesota. And with Chuck Fletcher now being out, I'm hoping. It's not to say they don't have some exciting players. I think Jason Zucker is fantastic to watch. Nito Niederreiter is pretty fun. I always love Mikko Koivu just because he's Finnish. But I don't know. With the injuries that Minnesota had, Nick Seeler and Carson Soucy on defense and whatnot, like Nate Prosser, I'm just like, I don't care about the Wild. So, and Winnipeg had their own suspension issues, injury issues, or whatever, and it shows the depth that the Manitoba Moose had this year because just pluck up a few guys, and both Winnipeg and Manitoba are doing just fine. So
it's ridiculous.
Rob Iman saying in the chat too, props to Winnipeg for staying the course. Absolutely. Like that's another and I'm gonna pat myself on the back here a little bit, but if you go back to our prediction show, I believe I said if the Blue Jackets, if the Jets can get good goaltending, they would have a chance at winning the division.
Yep.
So no, I completely agree. I'll take my points for that one.
Nice.
Absolutely. I was totally on the Jets train too. I mean, I didn't like the Mason signing. I thought, I thought Hellebuck was still the answer, and
I still don't like the Mason signing. I
don't either. I thought that they gave up. I thought they gave up on. No, they didn't really give up on Hellebuck, but I mean, I think they overreacted a little bit. Yeah, Hellebuck season. I don't want to say they gave up on him because I mean he was still there. I mean, obviously he was able to take the job and take the job back and run with it. But yeah, I did not like that signing at all. So it was nice to see them move on, and now we get the series that apparently and I count myself among the ones like I am going to watch every game of this series, whether it's live, PVR, whatever.
This is the Stanley Cup. Nashville Winnipeg is the Stanley Cup final that we deserve, And it's also the Stanley Cup final that NBC Sports Network deserves because of the fact that they never promote either of these teams. So,
well, I don't know. Like, see, Winnipeg is in Canada, which makes me think that NBC's never heard of them.
Right. If the Florida Panthers get more TV love than the Winnipeg Jets, then they need to analyze who the hell's good in this league. So, man, Nashville Winnipeg is going to be a sexy freaking series, man.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be the series to watch. I still think, look, I mean, my pick is Nashville to go all the way, which in hindsight may be dumb because President's Trophy winners generally don't go all the way. But
well, and as we know, regular season doesn't matter.
And regular season doesn't matter. But I still, as much, I just want a good series. If Nashville goes through and my bracket stays intact, fantastic. But if Winnipeg makes it through, I am not going to shed a tear either. Like, I don't care which team makes it through, and I want to keep watching both of these teams because I think that both of these teams are incredibly fun to watch.
Mike Nevis, I'm going to paraphrase this, but Mike Nevis says it's the white noise versus the rednecks.
Oh, man. It's true. It's true. I think it's be a great series. I mean, it's just everything's going to be super fun. So we move to the Pacific Division. I know we're running a little long here, so I'm going to try and speed this up a teeny bit. Vegas beat the Golden Knights, or the Golden Knights are Vegas. They beat the Los Angeles Kings in a 4-game sweep. This kind of, I'm not going to lie, this surprised me a little bit. I had Vegas winning this series, but this surprised me. A sweep surprised me. Holding the Kings to just 3 goals surprised me a little bit. Maybe not as much as it should have, but I mean, what were your thoughts on this series? Because to me, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I thought I too had the Golden Knights winning. I thought they were going to do it. I think I had them doing it in 5. I mean, as good as the Kings were, especially in the first half of the season, there's no way they could have matched the Golden Knights. I mean, they have the same problem as Anaheim, where they play a really heavy game, and thankfully the hiring of Rob Blake has helped start to pull them out of that hole, but it's still going to be at least another year before the LA Kings are, I think, in the right place that they want to be.
Kevin?
Fun series to watch. Fun, even though a low scoring series, a super fun series to watch because both teams just beat the heck out of each other. And I was a little disappointed that it wasn't Vegas and Anaheim because I thought that series was going to be brutal, but physically brutal. I mean, but Vegas and LA was just a fun time for playoff hockey. The sweep was shocking to me. I picked Vegas in 6. I guess I shouldn't really be surprised, but I'm still curious, and I'll say the same thing for the upcoming Vegas series, where I'm still curious to see how they react to losing in the playoffs. But hey, so far in the regular season, pretty much October, November, December, we kept saying, well, let's see how they react when they lose, and it didn't matter. They just kept winning as soon as they'd start losing. So good for Vegas. Hopefully it's a one and done fun for Vegas. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I like Vegas is an intriguing team. I've tried to avoid this, every time that they're supposed to like fall off, and they haven't. And I'm done looking stupid by saying that, yep, this is when it's gonna happen, guys. They're done this time for sure. Like, these assholes never stop, and I hate them, but I don't hate them.
The one thing for Vegas though is they only scored 7 goals themselves in the
right, and that's what I'm saying. I think the other thing I really liked about that series is Marc-Andre Fleury had a great series because I think he's really done a lot in the past few years to kind of erase this thing of him falling apart. Now, maybe he falls apart next round. I hope he falls. I want him to have an 867 save percentage next round. That'd be fantastic. But it's a nice story for a guy who takes a fair amount of crap for a player who yeah, okay, maybe not such a big deal in the first cup that they won. Not the first cup they won with Matt Murray, rather, not the first cup, obviously, because he was very important in that series. But I think last year he didn't get enough credit for what he did while Matt Murray was injured. And so I kind of like that he's, he doesn't really have a safety net. He has Malcolm Subban behind him. I think Malcolm Subban's had a great season, but I don't want Malcolm Subban net if I'm a Jets fan. I want Fleury all the way at this point. So
we know it's going to be Fleury Saros next year for them, which will just go, what the hell? How do they keep doing these things?
Right. Yeah, but it's going to be stupid. So I like that. I really like the Marc-Andre Fleury story. And then obviously the Sharks beat the Anaheim Ducks in a 4-game sweep, which really there wasn't a whole lot of hockey played, in my opinion. Like, this was just an ugly series. Like, it was fun because the Ducks were losing, and it was fun watching them lose their absolute shit. I've sworn a lot this show, and I apologize, but there's no better way to describe it. I mean, they just completely lost it. So many games. I mean, Game 4 was the only game that resembled a hockey game. Right. It's the thing. Like, other than that, it was a Royal Rumble for 3 games. Like, and because it wasn't like an MMA fight, it was just a Royal Rumble. It was just chaos for 3 straight games where the refs didn't want to call anything. We've done a lot of wrestling references tonight too.
The only way it would have been even more like a Royal Rumble is if Scott Niedermayer hopped the boards and scored a hat trick. That's the only way it would have been even more like a Royal Rumble. You got to get that. You got to get that surprise factor.
Surprise factor was Kevin Bieksa got in for a game. That was your
-3.
that was your pop.
Your pop. Look, I mean, you guys want to chime in on the series? I mean, we are Teal Tinted Glasses, so maybe we should spend at least a little time on this series. But there's really not much to say that hasn't been said already on this. And yeah, I mean, look at the benefit for the Sharks, obviously, is you want to get out of your early rounds games as quickly as possible and get as much rest as you can going into the next round. But
especially with how physical Anaheim is.
Right. And I think that, unfortunately, this is where I wish the Vegas series went a little longer. But it is what it is. What do you guys think of the Sharks Anaheim series?
The Sharks played great for most of it. The game 4 was a little scary, but obviously survived. The Sharks swept. Martin Jones was excellent. Sure, the Ducks only played. I would say the Ducks played tried to play 2 hockey games. Mm-hmm. Game 3, they were looking pretty good, and then the Sharks just seized control of the second half of that game. And then the Ducks just lost their minds. But the first half of the game, I thought the Ducks played pretty well. So Sharks, I'm hoping that when it comes to the actual hockeyness of this playoffs, the Sharks can contend. Because so far, I thought the Sharks kind of lost the first half of Game 3 when the Ducks were playing well. And I thought that the Sharks kind of lost the battle in Game 4, although statistically where the goals count, they won.
Yeah.
So I'm trying not to be negative about it because the Sharks were great this series.
They were, but I'm nervous going forward. I'm not gonna lie.
Exactly.
Dirk, bring us up.
See, I agree with Kevin. I think the Ducks played maybe 2 games. I mean, Game 4 was obviously their best showing, and then
it was their best showing for sure.
Game 2 as well. Now, for those of you who don't follow me on Twitter or don't remember, I was at Game 2 in Anaheim, and that third period, oh my God, I wanted to throw up so bad. It was so nerve-wracking because I really thought the Ducks were going to tie it. And thankfully they didn't, obviously. But, if you look at the series as a whole, I think the Sharks, they commanded the play. They made the Ducks pay for their mistakes. And the one thing that I look at going against Vegas is, obviously Vegas handled the Kings with ease. But like you said, Vegas only scored 7 goals. If the Sharks can exceed that, I think they'll be okay.
2 things. Ian, did you want to chime in? There's 2
things,
Chad, I want to get to too.
Sure, go ahead.
Rob Iman, Fact or Fiction. Normally I don't say these, but I really like this one. Game 1 will be sloppy. I think Game 1 will be sloppy.
Oh, they've both been offered.
Yeah, I think Game 1's just going to be just flip a coin and see who does better kind of thing, who survives the game. The other thing was Mike Nevis said, "Can you imagine if the Sharks had actually signed Kevin Bieksa?"
Almost happened.
They came very close.
It almost happened. Kevin Bieksa was looking to the point where Kevin Bieksa was looking for a house in San Jose before it all fell apart.
That's right.
For all the heat, and there's another wrestling term for you, for all the heat that Paul Martin gets, I would take him over Kevin Bieksa.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
That, I guess, so let's talk about the series quickly, because obviously that's what's gonna happen. At some point the NHL will tell us when this series is actually gonna start. Right now it's just happening soon. PM.
I'm gonna go with weekend-ish.
Weekend, yeah, I don't know. You would think that they'd start by Wednesday, but the hell do I know? What do you like? What do you think the Sharks? Where do the Sharks get the edge, and where do the Sharks have to worry in this series? Do you think? And I'll start with you, Kevin.
Ask the question again.
In what aspects do you think the Sharks have the edge, and in what aspects would Vegas have the edge, or do you think that the Sharks have to worry?
Martin Jones has not really had a bad playoff showing in his career.
Nope.
Marc-Andre Fleury has, although Fleury has, I still feel like, and I've always defended this, I feel like Fleury gets a raw deal sometimes. And right now, he's on fire right now. But because he does get that raw deal and lets it sink into his head, if the Sharks, say, take a 2-0 series lead, I don't know if that's going to happen, but if the Sharks take a 2-0 series lead, Fleury might start to crack a bit. So I'm going to give the edge in goaltending to the Sharks here. Defensively, I just don't know. Yeah, I think it's a wash. And offensively, I'm giving it to the Sharks as well. It's like weird. When you break it down this way, it's like I should be picking the Sharks in this series. Because offensively, the Sharks have been fantastic. I mean, the amount of goals they scored against Anaheim, I mean, my goodness, versus the amount of goals Vegas scored against LA. But I don't know, just the cohesion that Vegas has. The Sharks have cohesion, but Vegas is just in another stratosphere.
Yeah, you would like. For me, I like the Sharks offense, but I do worry about the Golden Knights because, and this has been said, we've joked about it, we've said it seriously. I mean, the Golden Knights are a team made of secondary scoring. They have secondary scoring as their primary scoring, and I think, but those kind of guys, I mean, those are the guys that get you wins in the playoffs. And that makes me nervous, whereas it's hard to really shut down, the Golden Knights because you shut down one line and there's still two other lines that can really hurt you. Not super. I mean, and again, yeah, they didn't score a ton against LA, but they still scored enough to get by. And I feel like, again, I don't feel like this team speed-wise matches up very well with the Knights. I get nervous about the defense. I really feel like, I'm nervous about Paul Martin being in for this series. I think for Anaheim, he was fine and he wasn't terrible. And I think there's a lot of overreaction to Paul Martin being in the lineup still. But if Vegas starts flying around him, I hope the leash is a little tighter than I think it's going to be. And if, I'm not saying Joakim Ryan's going to be the difference in this series, but if Paul Martin just can't keep up, I hope the Joakim Ryan option is on the table. So but still, I still feel like the defense is kind of a wash because, I think we have the better shutdown pair, but again, which line are you shutting down? I guess James Neal's probably going to see a lot of Mark-Edward Vlasic, but you still have William Carl. It's just they can juggle their lines and be just kind of stupid scary no matter what. Marc-Andre Fleury's been good. I want to see what happens when either of these teams get punched in the mouth, because neither team has really seen any adversity yet. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Look, we've seen the Sharks have troubles with adversity this year, and they've kind of gone through it. And sometimes they've fallen on their face for a stretch. And in the playoffs, you can't fall on your face for a stretch. So you know what? I feel like the Sharks could very easily win this series. I don't know if they do, but it wouldn't surprise me either. Like, I still have Vegas making it through the series, but obviously I don't want that to be the case, and I hope the Sharks win. And because I think if the Sharks win, then they can get completely killed by whoever Nashville and Winnipeg wins. That'll be our reward for beating the Golden Knights. We can get smashed. I don't want the Sharks to be added to another one of these stupid first ever lists. Like, we've got enough bad history of obnoxiousness.
I did the first ever team to beat the Vegas Golden Knights in the playoffs.
Right, I will take that one. Hockey Jerk, what do you got?
See, I think the Sharks, I think goaltending, based on the first round, I think goaltending is a wash. I think defense is a wash, but it can't go unsaid, and Kevin already touched on it. Historically, Martin Jones is good in the playoffs, and historically, Marc-Andre Fleury is not.
Yeah.
So you have to hope that trend continues. Like I said, defense is a wash. I think the Sharks are physically have the advantage. And in terms of quote unquote superstar, above average, elite, whatever adjective you like to use, I think the Sharks have the edge there. I mean, Logan Couture, Evander Kane, Joe Pavelski, those guys are stars. But you look at the Vegas Golden Knights, obviously they have speed, which, as we know, speed is really good to have in the modern NHL. And, it is a full team of secondary scorers, like you said, but, there's something about Vegas. I call it the surprise factor, like where everything seems fine, say the most recent game against the Sharks, where you're on the power play and everything seems cool. And then, William Karlsson puts it between his legs and scores. Like Vegas.
Well, LA found that out too. I mean, LA was leading a couple of those games in the third period and ended up losing. So,
well, and that's the thing too, is like, what I see with the Golden Knights is what I saw with the LA Kings like 5, 6, 7 years ago, where they're not really going to dazzle you by who's on the team, but it's that shock factor, or the surprise factor, where they just come out of nowhere and all of a sudden you're down 2-0.
Oh, and AO, no. AO in the chat. The Iron will be when Ryan Carpenter scores the game-winning goal in Game 7.
If he does that, then AO has to. If he does that, AO has to buy a jersey.
He has to, yeah.
But I think if the Sharks can limit the amount of chances that the Golden Knights try and take, because like you said, the Golden Knights can fly, and they've got that surprise factor going on. If the Sharks can be very stingy and very suffocating defensively, I think they'll be able to get their chances and make the most of them. It's just a matter of maintaining that level of play that they had against the Anaheim Ducks, but also not allowing Vegas to get the puck and get in the offensive zone.
Yeah. I think these teams are more evenly matched than I think they're going to get credit for. I'm tired of hearing this. The Sharks are the villains in this. Vegas is the villains. Like, what have they suffered? When have they ever suffered? F these people.
Yeah. Puck Guy says the third line is key for the Sharks. Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
Yeah, they got to get that line going.
Yeah. Especially with how big the steps all three of those guys took during the regular season.
Absolutely. Yeah,
need more from them.
They do need more from that third line. I hope the fourth line keeps rolling, and I hope that it's going to be a fun series. I'm looking forward to it. I want to move on here. Obviously, Barracuda in the playoffs. Kevin, I know you were attending games. What can you tell us about the Barracuda playoffs so far? I was going to watch a game and then I fell asleep because this is my life.
That's tragic. Game 2 was awesome.
I know. I was going to watch it.
Barracuda played very well in both games, and honestly, this series should be 2-0 San Jose right now. But Bibeau did not have his best game. He hasn't looked on his game so far in the playoffs, and I don't know if it's just because Tucson is that good or if Antoine he's struggling a little bit, that just kind of happens,
Yeah, I mean, Tucson is pretty damn good. I mean, they got a lot of, I look at that roster and it's definitely not the ideal first round opponent, but
no,
that's what happens when you make the playoffs in the last day.
Oh boy, it's this team. Like, I was just thinking about this because Joachim Blichfeld got assigned to the Barracuda on Saturday,
right?
And Vince G mentioned when I did Barracuda After Dark on Teal Town the other night. Vince G had mentioned in the chat that Jaden Halbagawatz's mom said he's going to San Jose, although it hasn't been made official yet. I'm just like, man, I can't believe that the Barracuda survived enough to get to this point where Chmielewski, Shakovich, possibly Blichfeld, Halbagawatz. I know they've added a couple other guys like the Gregor, Road, whatever. No Road should get this wake-up call that he's being scratched.
Yep.
But all these guys are now coming in and taking advantage of the situation, and now the Barracuda are starting to is like, whoa, wait a minute, this is getting really exciting.
Yeah,
I was good. I was actually for once, I was able to go to went to game one. It was a good game, despite the Barracuda having to come back. They had a good showing despite the fact that they lost, and that, I mean, Bebo has to have that goal that Tucson got the game winner with. But, at the same time, I thought the Barracuda definitely did not look outplayed in game one. And then, as we saw in game two, which I only got to see recaps of,
right?
They dominated Tucson for a good chunk of the game. There were a couple kind of like iffy moments, but for the most part, I thought it was a game that they controlled. And for as dim as the Barracuda's chances of doing anything substantial seemed about 6 weeks ago, I'm feeling pretty good about them taking 2 games in Tucson.
Yeah, I mean, here's hoping. I'd like to watch some. I'm gonna try. My work schedule's terrible as always, but I'm gonna try because there's a lot of hockey I want to watch. And Barracuda definitely wanted to watch that game. I just was too tired by the time I had to work early in the morning. By the time I got home from the Hound game, and then everything else, I was just done. Absolutely done.
There is a watch party at Stanley's. I should have mentioned this on that show. There's a watch party at Stanley's on Wednesday for the game. I'm hoping they're going to do it for all the games. But awesome. Yeah, so I'm going to try to attend that. So I did have a couple of Steve. I don't know if he watches the show, but I should plug his Twitter, but I don't have it memorized. He came up to me at game one and said hello. I love it when people just come up and say hi, and I'll make friends with you. So if I happen to make the viewing party on Wednesday at Stanley's, come on by, say hello. We'll cheer on the Barracuda together, man.
I hope the Barracuda make it to the second round, obviously, but I hope to get out to more Barracuda games like last season. I was not doing really anything, so I was able to go to like every Barracuda game, and ticket plans so helpful. But this year, like, school is, as for those of you who have ever stepped foot in a college classroom, college is crazy, and so dealing with that, haven't gone to a whole lot of Barracuda games, but I hope to get out to some potential round 2 games and watch them live. This feels like the Barracuda, at least a preview for next year of the Barracuda from 2 years ago, where it's like, yeah, okay, this team wasn't very good, but we've got so many good young guys who are just waiting to come in. And like you said, Chmielewski, Chikovic, Gregor, Halbigawatz, Blichfeld. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's going to be so many just amazing young talent. And, who knows about Dylan Gambrell either.
Yeah. Who knows about Gambrell? Jeremy Waugh, who knows there? I like Zach Fry. I like what he's done.
I granted I don't know what kind of long-term potential there would be for him, but I really liked Emerson Clark's game too.
Oh, Emerson Clark has been a little spark plug. He's almost been like what Trevor Parks was to the team 2 years ago.
I'm seeing with Emerson Clark, I'm seeing a lot of like Colin Blackwell parallels.
Yeah. And Colin Blackwell, by the way, 45 points for Rochester this year.
Love to hear it. As you all may know, I am the chair of the Colin Blackwell fan club, so very glad to know that. Vince G says no, Road got assigned to the Swedish national team. I say good.
Yeah, good. I mean, I'm sure he took his ego with him over there, and good riddance. So,
whose ego? What did I miss?
We're talking about Noah Road.
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did he go home? Take his ball and go home?
Apparently. He took his ball and went home, and that's fine by me.
There's another wrestling reference for you.
I wasn't even thinking of that.
That's amazing. Okay, so we're super running long, but I do want to quickly kind of just run down the award nominations so far, and we won't really dig too deep here. Right now, I'm sure we can talk about this later date, but right now, Norris is Hedman, Doughty, and PK Subban. My question is, did the wrong Predator defenseman get nominated?
Who would you have over him?
Roman Josi.
See, that I'll entertain that argument. I think not having John Carlson there is a crime, though.
Yes, absolutely. I love John Carlson. So
fair enough. Who wins?
Who wins?
Yeah,
Doughty wins. He always wins. Who should win? Hedman.
Doughty's only won once.
I was going to say Victor Hedman wins if you ask me, because he I believe he was technically the year that Doughty won it last. I believe Hedman technically was quote unquote third place, or maybe that was last year when Burns won it. But yeah, last year Hedman was technically third place, but I thought Hedman was better than Carlson for a lot of times, and even a little better than Burns.
Ian, you're right. Like Doughty doesn't always win, but I feel like Doughty's always there, whether he's always there or not.
Yeah, he's always there, but he's never. I feel like the year Doughty won, like it was kind of like the year Doughty won. It was like the year he shouldn't have won, where I think he got hosed on years where he should have, won, he didn't win, and then the year he shouldn't have won, he did.
Yeah, Carlson was the same way.
Yeah. The Vezina, I think this is going to be a tight one. You got Hellebuck, you got Vasilevsky, and you have Pekka Rinne. Man, I don't even know. Like, there's so many good stories here. Like Hellebuck, I like, but I feel like I'm kind of biased towards Hellebuck because I like him and I'm trying to summon Drew Weber and it's not working.
Well, you've only mentioned two of his cruxes. You need at least one more.
Maybe we'll get there. But I don't know. I mean, like, I like what Hellebuck does, but my brain says it's probably Vasilevsky.
Yep, and I think it should be Rinne.
Yeah, but Reno's in the wrong conference.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. I don't know. This Vezina race is really exciting to me. I think more than any other award.
I think it should be Vasilevsky only because every time they've showed him on camera in the playoffs, he just looks exhausted, but then he makes more saves.
and doing the Rafi Torres eyes through his mask, mind you, too.
I like that. Yeah. The Calder, I'm gonna pat myself on the back, even though he's not gonna win. We have Besser, we have Barzal, we have Clayton Keller.
I'm going to take Brock Besser only because he's Brock Besser, and I picked him to start the year. But really, come on, it's Barzal.
Yes, I also picked the reigning, defending, undisputed Calder Trophy champion of the NHL, Brock Besser. But another wrestling reference for you.
There it is.
It's Matt Barzal, and I don't want to say anything else.
It is.
I'm gonna start flipping stuff over if we don't move on.
We don't move on. All right, Selke, Couturier, Kopitar, Bergeron. I feel like this is Bergeron's trophy to lose, but
wait, I thought William Karlsson was one of the nominees, not Bergeron.
For the Selke. William Karlsson is the Lady Bing.
Really? Oh, I thought it was for the Selke.
No, I'm pretty sure it's Bergeron not nominated for Selke. What universe are you living in?
Okay. I don't know. I think because in my nominations, it was William Karlsson, Sean. No, actually, I think Braden Shen was one of my guys. And
I had Braden Point as a dark horse.
ooh, love Braden Point. Loved him when he got drafted.
I don't know, man. Like this Kopitar having a bounce back season. I mean, Kopitar's pretty much a perennial Selke guy, but Bergeron plays in the right conference. Couturier also plays in the right conference and also very good. I just sometimes, like with the NHL awards, I feel like, you know, reputation matters and people will get the award because they're so and so.
Datsuk.
Datsuk is a good guy for that. Another guy who got that treatment a lot was Martin Brodeur. I think more than anyone else, Martin Brodeur won a few Vezines that he probably shouldn't have.
That's fair.
Dude's opinion. Based on the fact he was Martin Brodeur. I would never besmirch the good name of Nick Lidstrom, but you could. I would entertain that argument, although I think Nick Lidstrom's the boss. Period. So I don't know. I just feel like I like Couturier here, but I just feel like because of this, you know, guys that have been here nonstop, Kopitar, Bergeron, Kopitar, especially the year he had, bounce back season for him. I would not be shocked to see Kopitar win, but it's probably Bergeron.
Yeah, I would say it's Bergeron too, just because of that, you know, that name recognition and that pedigree that you mentioned. But I could see Couturier as a dark horse for it, only because, you know, to my knowledge, he's never been nominated for it before. And the fact that he had such a good, you know, offensive season, despite the fact it is for defensive play, I think with how much of a quote-unquote warrior Couturier has been, I know playoffs don't matter in it, but I think Couturier may have been fresh in the mind of the voters, you know, when they were making their votes.
Lady Bing, Ryan.
Kopitar's my guy for that award, by the way.
Kopitar, yeah, I like Kopitar for it too. Lady Bing, Ryan, I have no love for the game anymore. O'Reilly.
That post-season interview was awesome. That sounded weird, but post-season interview is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I like when people are honest. Like, yeah. You know, it's again, it kind of goes back to that whole, like, you know, I think one of the tweets that was responding to the Ovechkin thing, where Spector completely blew up Ovechkin for making predictions in the first round, is why players don't say anything interesting, because they're going to get torn apart for it. And Brian O'Reilly is, I mean, my understanding is there are a lot of fans in Buffalo that want Brian O'Reilly on the next bus out of town because he doesn't love the game anymore. Doesn't like losing. I love Brian O'Reilly.
Right.
Andrew Barkov and William Karlsson are your Lady Big candidates.
I believe Kevin will get my reference here. I believe his name is Sasha Barkov.
Guys are too much. I don't know. Like Lady Bing, it's a funny trophy. I thought it was interesting that it was brought up how Vlasic had 2 puck over glass penalties, but he also has like a bajillion game misconducts at the end of the game for not being the most gentlemanly to the referees. So. Maybe that's what stopped Vlasic from getting a nomination here. But it was an interesting point, though, like how Vlasic really, you know, I think defensemen in general get overlooked for the Lady Bing.
100%. Yes.
But Vlasic, I mean, you know, it was a good point. I think it was Dmitry Filipovich brought this up. And just, you know, he has 2 infractions for, you know, playing against the best players in the league, and he gets 2 penalties the whole season, and they're both for putting the puck over the glass, which is, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think that something that really should be considered for Lady Bing and never is the amount of physicality someone plays with, but does it cleanly. So Vlasic's not the most physical guy, but I mean, if you got a guy who say has 140 hits in a season and 2 penalty minutes,
yeah,
that to me says, hey, that's a definite candidate for a Lady Bing.
What about
he's
Chara?
Playing hard, but he's playing fair, and that's what the award's supposed to be about.
Kill everybody in the league, kill if he wanted to. He just has to go to the dark side and just start killing people, and he doesn't. People are alive because Chara holds back. I don't know. Last trophy is the Masterton Trophy. This is I don't want to say it's the best sob story award. Let's be honest. This year is Jordan Stahl, Roberto Longo, and Brian Boyle who's going to win this going away because fuck cancer.
Just out of curiosity, do we know the reason why Roberto Luongo was nominated? I don't feel like I heard anything ever.
It was,
and he loves hockey still.
No, it was the shooting that happened in Florida. He went out and had gave a 5-minute speech before the Panthers game. Right. Got really emotional. It was an excellent speech, and that's what he got nominated for.
Yeah, because I Jordan Stahl. I know Jordan Stahl. You know, I believe he had a child pass away.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I can't imagine how much that sucks, but have to think he would get. I would have to think he would get some votes there, but sure. I do think it is Brian Boyle's.
Here's a guy that I'll just throw out as an honorable mention, despite the fact I'm sure he got absolutely 0 votes for this category. David Booth. And David Booth, yeah, he only played 36 games for Detroit or whatever this season. But here's a guy who every year for the last, I think, 4 years, after the serious concussion issues that he had, could not get an NHL job and kept year after year going over to Europe to play just to keep his career going. And year after year, come back, hope for an NHL tryout. And then finally this year, he landed himself an NHL contract for Detroit. There's your dedication to the game. So I do want to give, kudos to David Booth for sticking with it.
And then the King Clancy Award, which is you're the best human being ever. And the Sharks nomination is Chris Tierney. So we'll see what happens there again. Yay. A lot of these guys are great people who donate tons of time and everything else. And I hate this award because it's who's the best good person? I don't know, just everyone be good people and the world would be a better place. That's just my take on it. So F you, King Clancy. No, I'm just kidding. I think that's it. I think we've said a lot. We've probably talked way longer than we should have. And we'll be back to do it again sometime next week, hopefully with some games to talk about if they ever schedule them. To be continued. Kevin, final thoughts.
Final thoughts are I'm ready for round 2 of the playoffs. I wish I had tickets. I kind of screwed up and got really hungover Thursday. That's why there was no Barracuda After Dark on Thursday, because I was a bit incapacitated on Friday. And so hopefully you'll see me at a Sharks game. Hopefully you'll see me at a Barracuda round 2 game. And I'm going to go get more tacos. I'm at Kevin Lacey 22.
Bam. Mr. Hockey Jerk.
Well, final thoughts. Sharks, I think, are in a good spot. The Golden Knights is obviously it's going to be a daunting task, but I think the Sharks have the pieces to get past them. Martin Jones has played lights out. Obviously, Evander Kane has shown he can take over games by himself. And I still think the Sharks defensive unit doesn't get as much credit as they deserve, especially that third pair, the Dylan and DeMello pair.
Dilly pair?
Dilly. Oh, God, I hate that so much. But
that's why I do it.
Yeah, right. Bracket challenge. I was hoping that at the end of all the games, I would be in first place so that I could be my normal jerk self and say, oh, guess who's in first place? Me. But I'm not. I'm in 5th. It's okay.
It's okay.
Still got a lot of time to go. I'm going to win. What is the prize? You get 2 Samsung Galaxy whatevers and
I don't know. Here, I'm gonna just show off the standings here really quick.
Sure. Let's give props to the bracket challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. For everyone who took part in the bracket challenge, you're awesome. Currently, your Angry Canadian Robot is sitting in number 2, tied with Ms. 4 Paws Up for Hockey. Nick is killing us.
Of course,
he's got the lead here. I think Nick's just been killing all the other stuff. For everyone else that is hanging in there. It's gonna be okay.
I see your Hockey Jerk is in 5th place, so still close. A lot of time.
Kevin Lacey guy though. The worst.
Definitely. All the way down there.
Worst.
I bet he picked Flyers in 6.
Oh man, this is why Kevin Lacey's going on waivers after the season. Now that he's not here to defend himself. Yeah, so I know obviously I appreciate everyone who took part in this, and yay to you.
Absolutely. And last thing before I throw it back to you.
Okay.
I really need to stress this, and I'm sure Jessica is listening either right now or in the future through some kind of, space warp or, SoundCloud. But I am not a Pittsburgh Penguins fan.
Until the Sharks are
out. And you know what? That's just the way it is. I don't even like them. They're the worst. Totally
the worst. Totally the worst. We don't want to watch them win a third championship. Come on.
Cheryl's happy because she has 11th place all to herself.
Hey,
congratulations.
You know what? I have to share second place. That doesn't make me happy. No, I'm enjoying this. Yeah, look at my final thoughts on the night are, let's just be good people to each other and stop killing each other in randomly awful ways. Other than that, hope to be back next week. We're going to break down some actual hockey games again with the Sharks involved, and hopefully some more Barracuda games and a Barracuda second round. Other than that, go Sharks. Be cool. Good night.